Right now on Upfront.
A special edition from the Iowa State Fair. How are you preparing for the debate, and how will you confront Trump if he's on the stage or if he isn't? Countdown to the first Republican presidential primary debate in Milwaukee. This weekend, the candidates in Iowa. The final days to qualify, the debate prep underway. Will former President Trump show up?
I think there's a huge risk to offending Wisconsin voters.
The make or break moment coming to Milwaukee. Up front on the campaign trail.
Let's go, guys. Keep moving. Keep walking.
Our conversation with the candidates.
Then, Democrats watching, abandoning Iowa as the first in the nation, rallying around President Biden as the president prepares a trip to Wisconsin this week. Democratic strategist and former Obama campaign staffer Joe Zepecki on Wisconsin's impact. And high drama at the high court.
This is really inexplicable. It's shameful, and they shouldn't be doing it.
Liberals taking majority and making it known. The fallout and that rare interview from the High Court's Chief Justice.
This is Upfront with Jaron Jordan and political director Matt Smith.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for this special edition of Upfront. Just 10 days until debate night in Milwaukee, Matt is at the Iowa State Fair.
Jaron, a make or break moment for some of the candidates now just days away, and it is here at the Iowa State Fair the candidates have descended this weekend, including the frontrunner, former President Donald Trump. A tradition underscoring the still critical importance of the Iowa caucuses on the road, securing the Republican nomination in Wisconsin. All this as the White House just announcing President Biden will visit Milwaukee and deliver remarks on Tuesday. But first, that critical test in Milwaukee, now just days away.
Let's go, guys. Keep moving. Keep walking. Let's go.
If the road to the Republican nomination runs through Wisconsin, it must first begin in Iowa.
It is wonderful to be on the soapbox. It is wonderful to be back at, how about this Iowa State Fair, everybody? Is this place amazing?
Nearly every Republican presidential candidate is here this weekend at the Iowa State Fair and barnstorming rural communities. A time-honored tradition ahead of the first in the nation caucuses, grassroots-style politicking, and message testing ahead of the first primary debate in Milwaukee.
People respond to leadership. When they see that you're willing to dig in and fight for them, man, they'll walk over broken glass barefoot to come out to support you.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis polling a distant second behind former President Donald Trump, meeting success not only in Iowa, but on the debate stage in Milwaukee. We traveled with the governor in rural Iowa. I'm curious what you need to do on that stage and how you plan to confront Trump, whether he's there or not.
Well, look, at the end of the day, we're just going to talk about our vision for the future. We're going to talk about our accomplishments. We're going to talk about our bio and what kind of has made us the leader that we are, and have a great exchange. So I think it's important that people participate in the debates. I think it's an important part of the process, and I will be there regardless of who else shows up, and we're looking forward to being able to do it in Milwaukee.
Have you signed the pledge yet?
I did, yeah. Look, at the end of the day, you're going to go and participate and then say you might not support somebody else against Biden. I mean, you can't on the one hand say that the country's going in such a bad direction, which we all believe, and then on the other hand say you're just going to take your ball and go home. Really? I'm happy to do that. I've voted Republican my whole life, and even though I'm confident we'll be the nominee, at the end of the day, you respect the judgment of how this works out, and you don't take your ball and go home. It's not just about you. It's about a larger mission that we have to accomplish for Americans.
Trump says he'll announce this week whether he'll show up to the first debate, arriving at the Iowa State Fair Saturday, bringing with him some of Florida's congressional delegation who've endorsed him over DeSantis.
I'm so honored to see this crowd. This is amazing. This is a record crowd. They've never had anything like it, so look at it as far as the eye can see.
Trump giving brief remarks Saturday afternoon. Just before that, DeSantis and his supporters circling the building.
So the other candidates came here, they had like 6 people. We've stopped at 3 different places, and we've never been treated so well. I will say 2020 was fantastic, 2016 was fantastic. But we have never seen love and enthusiasm. Some of the people where we stopped in 2020, we stopped in 2016. this blows it away. We set a record for people today.
The other candidates banking on Iowa for a breakthrough moment, and the fair is where it sometimes begins.
Looking ahead to the debate in Milwaukee, how are you preparing? I mean, do you need a breakout moment on the stage?
I mean, there's going to be many debates, so the first debate's just the first step. You know what my schedule is from here to the debate state? I'm going from here. Tomorrow I'm going to New Hampshire. Then I'm going to California, then Nevada, then Texas, then Georgia, then South Carolina, then Ohio, then the debate. So that'll tell you how I'm taking my debate prep.
So it's not very serious.
Which is to talk. No, I mean, I think it's serious, but I don't want to do artificial stuff. I'm talking to voters. That is my debate prep. And you know what? Trump's first debate performance wasn't his best last time. Everybody else on that stage has already been through multiple political debates, primary debates and general election debates. I haven't. And so I want to own that. So, it might take a couple debates for me to find my own stride. But my whole speed is authenticity, and that's what's going to lift us. So the first debate, it's kind of a warm-up for the rest. And I'm going to be party qualified for September and October too. So that's, I think, what we expect to see.
If you want to throw bombs at the other party, the other side, run for Congress. I will never be a congressman. I'll never be a senator.
Traditions, from the Des Moines Register's political soapbox to Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds' Fairside Chats. Former U.S. Ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
I've been underestimated in everything I've ever done, but it's a blessing because it makes me scrappy. No one's going to outwork me in this race. No one's going to outsmart me in this race. We have a country to save, and I'm determined to do it.
And to that, Ambassador, we're from Milwaukee. I'm curious, as you look to the first debate, what you need to do and how you're preparing to do that.
Looking forward to the debate. I mean, it's a great chance for the American people to see what their options are. And I can tell you, we have done dozens and dozens of town halls in New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina. We take every question and we answer them. So the people of Iowa have gotten me ready for this debate. They go and they ask the hard questions. We answer those. We're just ready to get up there and have a good time.
Have you signed the pledge yet?
I have absolutely signed the pledge, and every Republican candidate should sign the pledge because any one of the candidates are better than a President Kamala Harris.
The Republican National Committee's debate criteria is strict. Former Vice President Mike Pence just recently meeting the 40,000 donor threshold, not to mention signing that pledge to support the eventual nominee, which Trump said in recent days he won't. How are you preparing for the debate, and how will you confront Trump if he's on the stage or if he isn't?
Well, I couldn't be more happy that we're going to be on the stage in Milwaukee. We just announced about 9 weeks ago, and we didn't offer gift cards, we didn't offer kickbacks, we didn't even offer soccer tickets, and we got more than 40,000 contributors in that short period of time, and we're just preparing. I will tell you, when I think of that kind of a moment, when I think about previous national debates that I've been involved in, I think I've spent a lifetime preparing. People ask me sometimes what I think about maybe debating Donald Trump. I tell people I've debated Donald Trump 1,000 times, just never with the cameras on. But look, I know the former president, I know everybody on that stage, and I'm looking forward to having a vigorous debate. We can talk about days in the past, but I'm going to focus my attention just as much on the future, because I think there's a real divide in the Republican Party about the direction of our party and the direction of our country. And lastly, I see a number of people in the Republican field that are shying away from the right to life. They want to relegate it to just a state issue. And while I'm grateful for the leadership in states around the country, including here in Iowa, advancing protections for the unborn, when the Supreme Court made their decision, they turned the decision on abortion over to the states and the American people. And I want the people here in Iowa to know, and all over the country know, that if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to be a champion for the right to life from the Oval Office and in state capitals around the country.
Pence, Trump's former vice president, polling in the single digits, now sometimes confronted. One voter at the soapbox accusing him of treason for certifying the results of the 2020 election. How important is this first debate in Milwaukee for you?
Oh, we're looking forward to it very much. I'm so grateful for the outpouring of support across the country that's going to make it possible for us to be there. And it's going to be a great opportunity for people to hear from all the candidates, and I think all the candidates should be there.
Have you signed the pledge yet? When will you do that?
We'll finish up the paperwork on showing up before the 23rd, but you've known me for a long time. People here in Iowa may not know that you've got an Indiana background, and we'll be ready.
At this point, at least 8 candidates have qualified to make the stage in Milwaukee. They all have until 48 hours before the debate to meet the fundraising and polling requirements and just sign the pledge. You've made the debate stage in Milwaukee. What does your debate prep look like, and do you need a breakthrough moment in Milwaukee?
Don't need a breakthrough moment, and debate prep looks like this, which is talking, being at the fair, talking to real American citizens. We're not going in some, closet, and trying to memorize lines. I mean, we're talking to real people about what they're concerned. They're concerned about inflation. Great, inflation is growing less slowly. Prices are up almost 30% for every American family from 2 years ago. Can we talk about that? Can we talk about, our debt being downgraded last week? These are things that are affecting every single American. So we're just going to come in, and guess what? Of the 8 people on the stage, 7 America knows. There's one, who's the guy? Who's that guy? We have an opportunity just to introduce ourselves, who we are.
North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum polling near the bottom, but finding a way to secure those 40,000 donors to make the debate stage, in a move some other campaigns have tried to mirror. You were handing out gift cards to get on the debate stage. How crucial and how important was it for you to make that first debate stage in Milwaukee?
Well, it was very important, but of course, making the debate stage, the rules, these are like clubhouse rules that the RNC came up with, and they're not federal election. Let's just be clear what they are. But as an entrepreneur, if somebody creates a set of rules and said, to play the game, this is what you have to do, then we just said, how do we figure out a way to solve that? And we solved it at like 1/5 the cost of what others were doing, paying online fundraising organizations.
You're talking about the issues you hope are discussed that Wednesday on the debate stage. How much, though, do you think Trump is going to loom, whether he's there or not?
Well, again, I'll leave that. There's 7 by 24 industry that can discuss what former president is doing. We'd rather be talking about the current president, because the current president has been abysmal on the economy, energy, national security, and that's every time we have a chance to talk, we're going to be talking about that. Up next, Jaron is back. Democrats watching what's happening in Milwaukee. The DNC abandoning Iowa is the first in the nation. Democratic strategist Joe Zepecki with the new analysis next.